Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratase Namaha. Namo Namo Aniruddhaya Hrishikesha Indriyatmane Namaha Paramahamsaya Purnaya Nivritatmane Swarga Pavargadvaraya Nityam Suchi Sade Namaha Namah Hiranyavirya Chaturhotraya Tantave. Hare Krishna. So we are again continuing our discussion on Sri Harinam Cintamani, the dialogue between the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, and his dearmost servant, Srila Haridas Thakur, who is also the designated Acharya or authority on the chanting of the holy names. In the previous two sessions, our focus was on understanding offensive chanting. And for that, we had to refer to the scriptural reference of the 10 offenses that are committed in the chanting of the holy names. The most heinous or the worst offense that can ever be committed, which is the root cause of every other offense, is offending a chanter of the holy name, offending a sadhu ninda. And then we defined the characteristics of sadhu. We said that the swarup lakshana of a sadhu is that he is completely surrendered to Krishna. He has taken complete shelter of Krishna. That is the swarup lakshana of a sadhu. And then there are marginal qualities that develop in the sadhu because he is in touch with the primary quality of complete surrender to Krishna. So we looked at those two aspects. We looked at what is tatastha and what is the swarupa. And the swarupa drives the tatastha. The tatastha or marginal quality is not fully manifest in many cases, which is the root cause of confusion. What is manifest could be the swarup lakshana of complete surrender to Krishna, or the acceptance of Krishna as being the only shelter. Acceptance of Krishna as being the only shelter is manifest, but then the tatastha lakshana is not fully manifest of being, tolerant, being humble, so on and so forth. And as a consequence, we don't respect such personalities, and that becomes a grievous offense. The tatastha lakshana of the various qualities of a Vaishnava, that which develops by coming in touch with the swarupa of being completely in the shelter of Krishna, differs according to varna, it differs according to ashram. It can differ according to varna and ashram because certain kinds of behavior can be found in certain varnas, and certain other kinds of behavior is also found based on the ashram, because one ashram differs from the other, and as a consequence, what is good for one is not certainly appropriate for the other. So there could be certain behavioral changes, and as a consequence, the marginal qualities of being a sadhu are not fully manifest, or it may differ based on varna and ashrama. As a consequence, we need to focus not so much on what could be different in different varnas and ashramas. We need to focus on a primary quality of being able to identify the fact that someone has taken shelter of Krishna. They are chanting the holy names. They are on the path of surrender. They could be 100 miles away while someone else could be 50 miles away, or someone else could be 2 miles away, or someone has reached the destination altogether. However, the fact is that everyone is on the road or the path to surrender. So we need to be able to pay attention to the fact that everyone is on the path and everyone has taken shelter of Krishna. Even though there could be differences based on varna, there could be differences based on ashram. Okay? So this is a very, very important fact because it really bears down on and impacts very heavily. It impacts our ability to make any progress. One who offends a Vaishnava offends the very fundamental basis of being able to chant the holy name. We receive faith in the holy name by sadhu sangha. We receive faith in the holy name by sadhu sangha. When we use the word adav shraddha, And that Shraddha is Komala Shraddha. It is very soft, it's immature. But how do we receive Shraddha? Shraddha is received according to Harinam Cintamani. I'm going to just read a paragraph. When one sits in the presence of a Vaishnava for some time, one feels Krishna's potency exuding from his person. This potency enters the heart of a faithful person and impregnates it with bhakti. So there is a need for Adav Shraddha, which is fundamental faith that there is some benefit in associating with devotees. He experiences immediate ecstasy. Okay? Many devotees who served Srila Prabhupada very closely, who are proximate to him, and who are very early in their own devotional practice. They had just been initiated, or they have probably not been initiated, but they have understood the philosophy. They have not gone very deep into Shastra, which means that even their Shraddha in Shastra is prior. It is shadowy, or it is Shraddha Bas in Shastra. Because the maturity of a Vaishnava is defined by faith in Shastra. If the faith of someone is very immature, it is someone who has come in touch with different philosophies. They've also heard about Krishna consciousness. They may have even practiced Krishna consciousness in not fully understanding the basis of Krishna consciousness. They could have practiced it because of family roots. They could have practiced it because of tradition, based on their social, economic circumstances, wherever they may be. And when they come with faith, but then that faith is shadow. And they are called Vaishnavas, but they are called Vaishnava Praya. They are not full Vaishnavas. They are called Vaishnava Praya. It is only when faith in Shastra matures, the person is called Vaishnava Tara, where their faith has matured and they have accepted the lines of Shastra. It is only when they start living the Shastra fully. When they start living the Shastra fully and start experiencing the Shastra fully, at that time they are Uttama Vaishnavas, they are Vaishnavottama. This is the definition of 3 different levels based on faith in Shastra. Because unless one has faith in Shastra, where they're able to relish and accept the Shastric conclusions and they're able to ingest it and then imbue it and experience it, difficulty would arise and for them to be able to lead a life which is aligned with the principles enunciated in Shastric conclusions. There would be difficulties. And as a consequence, there are 3 different levels. There's Vaishnava Praya, there is Vaishnava, Madhyama Vaishnava, and then there is the Uttama Vaishnava based on their faith in Shastra and their acceptance of Shastric conclusions. Okay? So the point which we wanted to make is that if we want to sit next to a Vaishnava and be imbued with faith, we can come with certain kinds of faith. Someone could be a Madhyama, someone could be a Praya, and then they sit next to Uttama Bhakta, then they would be imbued to the extent to which they have to go. In other words, they get upgraded to the next level. Okay? And we were saying that many cases in the early days with Srila Prabhupada, and they were around Prabhupada, they were proximate to Prabhupada, they were serving him, and so on and so forth. They used to experience shadow ecstasy. Okay? They used to experience shadow ecstasy. In other words, they were not sufficiently evolved on their own accord. Their own consciousness was not sufficiently evolved, but they were proximate to someone who was extraordinarily elevated, such as Prabhupada, and as a consequence, his consciousness was spilling over on those who were surrounding him. And they were experiencing certain symptoms of high elevation. Okay? And this is something which we also have to note, that what is being written here is that this potency enters the heart of a faithful person and impregnates it with bhakti. He experiences immediate ecstasy. Just by a moment's association with a Vaishnava, bhakti is invoked in the heart of a pious person. Immediately he'll be inspired to chant Lord Krishna's name. Gradually the holy name will offer him all the spiritual qualities. So immediately he wants to accept and chant, and he's inspired to chant Krishna's name. That is the Swarup Lakshana. He wants to chant Krishna's name, he has accepted it. But then the Tatastha, the other qualities will come to him gradually as his faith matures and he has full acceptance of Shastric conclusions. And full acceptance of Shastric conclusions is where you enjoy reading Shastra and you look at each and every verse, you look at the translation, and you look at how the different participants in the Shastra have responded to it, and you start ingesting it, and it becomes a part of you, and you start living such segments of Shastra. There could be many people who inspire you within Shastra. And sometimes you just get inspired by a whole section. Okay? I was reading the advent of Sri Vamanadev. And it was fascinating to see how strategically the Lord accepts the form of Vamana. Even before coming in as Vamana, he meets the mother of the demigods, the Devas. He meets Mother Aditi. And then he says very clearly that those who are protected by the Brahmanas, they cannot be touched by anyone, they cannot be harmed by anyone. So he's very clear. He's saying that there will be no aggression from me on Bali Maharaj because he is being protected by Brahmanas. That is the first point which he makes. This is a Shastric conclusion. Second, he advents as Vamana in taking on a dwarf form, and so that he comes into a certain arena where he looks at the time, place, and circumstances, makes himself available to Bali Maharaj as a Vamana, as a dwarf, as a Brahmana, so that he is in the sacrificial arena, he is engaging in charity. The dialogue that goes on between the Lord and Bali Maharaj is worth noting. It is fascinating to see how the Lord praises Bali Maharaj's ancestors. He not only praises Prahalad Maharaj, he praises Hiranyakashipu, he praises Hiranyaksha. It is pretty fascinating to see how he praises them in terms of their power, even though they were vanquished by his own force. He tells them that he came in search, Hiranyakashipu came in search of Vishnu. He came to the ocean and he searched Vishnu, and then Vishnu entered into his heart so that he would not be able to find him. Okay? And he says, out of fear, he entered into his heart just to make Bali Maharaj pacified and pleased. He gains his confidence. So there's so much text, so it is just fascinating to see how each and every verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam is worth noting. And then there are several discussions by Sukracharya, the spiritual master of Bali Maharaj, on how a Grahastha should manage his finances. There are several discussions on finances and Grahasthas. There are several discussions on how money should be divided, in different pots. It's very, very nice. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because one of the realization I had while I was reading all of that was, if one were to simply live according to Shastric conclusion, there's complete protection. There's complete protection. There will be no loss, there will be no diminution, and one would be successful in whatever venture they take on because the Shastras will protect you. Why? Because Krishna says so in the 8th canto. He tells the mother of the Devas, Mother Aditi, he tells her that Bali Maharaj cannot be touched because the Brahmanas are protecting him. This is Shastric conclusion. It is quite consistent across the board. Okay? So this is the beauty of being able to understand and ingest and then being able to absorb ourselves in Shastra, because one can start living according to them. You can actually plan and you can do many, many things. And if we do that, if we simply follow the edicts of Shastra, always wanting to maintain the superlative principle of taking shelter of Krishna's name, we would always be successful. We would always be on the right path. There would be absolutely no defeat because we would be fully protected by the potency of the holy names. Okay? So this is something that we need to completely understand as to how things are being arranged through Shastra. Okay? Now, the faith in Shastra can develop. But before that develops, one can experience ecstasy because they are close to a Vaishnava. And this was actually shared by many devotees who are close to Srila Prabhupada. Now, there are a few things that I did want to share today, and of two types of discussions, or rather two verses. One was to completely understand the view of Shastra on Sadhu Ninda, because Sadhu Ninda, or the offenses committed to the lotus feet of a sadhu, they take on quite a dangerous form for the simple reason that the sadhu is the source of all mercy. Okay? Sadhu is the source of all mercy. So if he is offended or she is offended, automatically everything gets cut off. Everything gets cut off. And ultimately, the other aspect is that how we behave and interact with others is also dependent on our progress. Because in one sense, the whole process of Krishna consciousness is for us to learn how to treat each other so that we could learn how to behave in Vrindavan. And if we do not know how to behave in Vrindavan, that is the reason for this whole process. We are trying to learn sadhana bhakti or any other process which is even higher than that is completely the focus is for us to learn how to behave with Krishna when we reach Vrindavan or how to reach Vrindavan. Once all the lessons are learned and our heart is pure enough for us to be able to interact at the same level as a Vrindavan Vasi, someone who is truly a resident of Braja, then we are ready to leave for Braja. So imagine that if we cannot get along with others and instead we cause all kinds of conflicts, these conflicts have the nature of focusing on tatastha, something that is not fully manifest. Conflicts do not arise on the fact of someone taking shelter of Krishna. But if our whole focus is to just focus on someone who has taken shelter of Krishna and we become very wary and we assist and we serve, then conflicts and the aparadhas would go down quite dramatically. Okay? So now the two things that I did want to talk about was that there are 6 different categories of sadhu ninda. It is just not one. It is not broad. There are 6 different categories of sadhu ninda. So in the Skanda Purana, it is written that the verse in Skanda Purana says, Nindam kurvanti e muda Vaishnavanam Mahatmanam Patanti Pitribihi Sardam Maharaurava Sapnite Hanti Nindanti Vaidveshti Vaishnavan Nabinandanti Krudeyate Yati No Harsham Darshane Patanani Shat. So the translation is the foolish person, Muda, who criticizes an exalted Vaishnava, Vaishnavanam Mahatmanam, falls down to the hell known as Maharaurava along with his forefathers. So practically, if one becomes a pure devotee, he delivers 21 generations and even beyond. However, if he commits offenses, he brings down all the forefathers. Whoever was already delivered, whoever it is, at whatever state they are in, they fall down as well. So it's a double-edged sword. So the offenses are whoever kills a Vaishnav. Now, killing a Vaishnav is obviously, it does not require a big explanation. But then one has to understand, what does it mean when Shastra says killing a Vaishnav? It literally means someone who is envious of Vaishnavas. Killing is where we look at someone, we feel that we don't want them to exist. We just feel they should disappear. I don't want them in my life. They should disappear. We don't want them to exist. This is enviousness. So this is a category of enviousness. That's why we say the snakes are envious. Why do they carry the effect of, why do they carry enviousness? Because they do not discriminate. They do not discriminate in terms of, okay, this is what someone is doing and this is what someone is not doing and so on. Even if a 3-year-old child comes before them, they tend to strike, and they strike the body, and then it causes death. So they have absolutely no other motive other than to destroy. That's why the snakes carry enviousness, and that is the reason why this quality of being envious is compared to being a snake. Cannot be trusted. And killing a Vaishnava is an act of great enviousness. Okay? So what is the other offense? It says blasphemes him, which is also obvious. We are blaspheming the Vaishnava. We speak ill of Vaishnavas. We speak ill of Vaishnavas and also feel malice towards him or towards her. Okay? It's also maliciousness. We feel great maliciousness towards the Vaishnavas. Okay? We blaspheme them, we feel maliciousness. In other words, what you're looking at here is when they say killing a Vaishnava, they're talking about bodily harm, physical level, blaspheming him by words. Okay, now we're going from the body to words. Feels malicious towards him or her. Now we're talking about the mind, mental level. Pay attention that they're talking about all levels. Okay, does not properly greet him upon seeing him. In other words, we are so disturbed about Vaishnavas or someone else that we are not even properly greeting them upon seeing them. Sometimes you notice that. Okay, and probably others have also gone through it, but I have also to my share. You will feel Vaishnavas just walking past you. They'll ignore you, and it is not so much that we are sensitive or not sensitive and so on and so forth. It is simply that they're committing sadhu ninda. Because if they pay attention to the fact that someone is chanting the holy names, if they pay attention to the fact that they are they have taken complete shelter of Krishna, then why would you even take a chance of not greeting them? They just walk past, they ignore you, or they feel angry towards you. There's a lot of things that are going on in the heart where they judge you based on all kinds of tatastha, secondary considerations which have not fully developed. They ignore the fact that the primary consideration of complete shelter to Krishna has happened. The person is chanting, they have accepted Krishna as supreme. They may not have accepted Krishna as supreme fully. There could be degrees of acceptance, but the fact is they are on the path. Okay, they do not greet them even. Sometimes I've seen that complete disregard. You could just walk past the person, and they do it deliberately, as if they're trying to score a point. This is done normally in the outside world, because the outside world is all about what they can see and perceive. It is all about you can do anything you want to others. But when it happens in the Vaishnava circles, it is distressing, because we are forgetting the fact that the tatastha should not overpower or dominate our consideration of coming to accept the Swarup Lakshana, which is complete shelter of Krishna. It is dangerous. And the other part which they're talking about is does not properly greet him upon seeing him, becomes angry with him. That is fifth. Number 5. 6, does not feel joy upon seeing him. Okay. These are 6 different types of misconduct. They do not feel joy. What to say of being envious, what to say of wanting to kill, what to say of wanting to blaspheme, what to say of feeling malicious, or does not properly greet him, becomes angry with him. They are saying, if you do not feel joy, it is a misconduct. And why should you feel joy? Because you have someone who is also worshipping Lord Chaitanya. What other consideration could we have for accepting someone as a close, dear personality? What other consideration do you have? Should there be any other consideration other than the fact that they are also the servants of Lord Chaitanya? If Lord Chaitanya is very dear to us, this problem will not occur. It is only when we do not have clear thoughts and consciousness of accepting Lord Chaitanya into our hearts that we differentiate the Tatastha Lakshana of all Vaishnavas, and we differentiate. We forget the Swarup, that they are also connected. So one has to examine their own hearts to see, have they accepted Lord Gauranga? Have they accepted the Yuga Avatar? Have they accepted him in full? He is Mahavadanyaya. Have they accepted him? Because if we have accepted him, how could we not accept others who have also accepted him? Isn't it just logical that we should be able to accept others without fault? So these are issues. These are issues where our focus is on the tatastha, qualities that are not yet developed because the person is not fully in touch with the primary. And in a matter of time, they will be fully in touch with the primary, and the tatastha gunas will also come forth wonderfully. Until such time, we have to focus on the fact that they are on the path and they are in touch with the primary. It is so important, because this is Shastra. Again, since there is a Shastra Abhas, faith in Shastra is weak, we don't accept Shastra. That's why there's no fear. Okay? We have so many different considerations for judging people. Do not do so with Vaishnavas. There could be only one consideration, that they have taken shelter of the holy names. Just one. Just one. Anything else is dangerous. This verse from Purana, Skanda Purana, is telling us that even mental level can cause problems. And why would mental level cause problems? Because once we start harboring all these conflicts, all this nonsense within the mind, and we start meditating on those and contemplating on those, it is just a matter of time that the mind's thoughts would transform itself into words. It is just a matter of time that words will transform them into action. It is just a matter of time. So here this verse is saying that you cannot even commit mental offenses. Do not feel malicious. Do not feel angry, mental. You may not say anything, but you could have anger because someone didn't do something which you thought should be done. But the price that is going to be extracted is too heavy. Why is this duality so prominent in Vaishnava society? because people have not fully accepted Lord Gauranga. If they have accepted Lord Chaitanya, they will not differentiate amongst the others who have accepted Lord Chaitanya. It's impossible. It is impossible for one to feel negativity towards another who has also accepted their beloved. It's a very firm conclusion. You don't need to debate this. Okay? If they do not know about Lord Gauranga and they hate us, which we have seen sometimes, a couple of years back, 2013 in Atlantic City during Rath Yatra, there was a fellow who was cursing me. He was clenching his teeth, clenching his hands. He was gritting his teeth, clenching his hands, and he was wanting to punch me for being a part of the parade, for chanting Hare Krishna. Okay? Now, he doesn't know anything because he has not been taught. He has committed sinful reactions, yes, but he is not counted amongst those who will be completely deprived of everything. It is those who have already been given knowledge who will be deprived of everything. Okay, and we fall in that category because we are receiving confidential knowledge. We have received the first initiation, second initiation, some cases 3 initiations. Yet the problem continues because there's confusion. There's confusion in how to judge. Okay, and that's the problem. Now, it is also written in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 74th chapter, 40th verse, Nindam Bhagavatah Shrinvams Tat Parasya Janasya Va Tato Napaiti Asopi Yatiyadha Sukratis Chutaha. A person who does not promptly leave the place where blasphemy of Bhagavan or his dedicated devotee, the Vaishnava, is perpetrated, becomes bereft of all previously accumulated spiritual merit. All Sukriti and merit is gone if we even stay in the place where blasphemy occurs of Bhagavan or Vaishnava. This verse was spoken in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the context of Shishupal degrading Krishna in the assembly of Yudhishthira Maharaj in Indraprastha during the Rajasuya. When Shishupal was degrading and speaking all kinds of things about Krishna, there were many Brahmanas and many devotees who just walked away after cursing him because they could not stand. And this is, and again, a very, very important consideration for us. Do not participate in any conversation or do not be there if someone has started misbehaving. Leave that association. That association can degrade us. Leave the association. It is said that you are either supposed to correct the person by fighting with him, which is what the Pandavas wanted to do with Shishupal. They picked up arms wanting to annihilate him for speaking that way, or you're supposed to leave. One of those. Do not hang around, keep silent, because it will hurt you. Do not do that. Speak against it, because that is required. Defending the truth is always required. Jayananda Prabhu, Jayananda Thakur, one of our great devotees in the movement, someone who practically made the Rath Yatras happen when Srila Prabhupada was on the planet, and he was very dear to Srila Prabhupada. Someone whose disappearance is being celebrated as we do with every other saint, because Srila Prabhupada specifically wanted that. He was so elevated. We call him Jayananda Thakur. We have his picture in front of every Rath Yatra cart around the world when we bring out the Rath Yatras. His behavior was perfect. When someone was found criticizing other devotees, he used to walk away. He simply used to just walk away from the conversation. He used to just leave the conversation. Now, this is someone who is very serious, who is understood, whose heart was so soft and so well connected to Mahaprabhu that he could not even stand the criticism of other Vaishnavas. So it is so important for us to understand from these instances. Another instance from Shastra of behavior. When Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu, the close associate of Sriman Mahaprabhu, one of the Panchatattva, was told about Pundarik Vidyanidhi Prabhu, about his greatness and about his exalted nature. And he was bought in his presence. Now, even though Pundarik Vidyanidhi Prabhu was an exalted devotee, he was also a very, very opulent and rich businessman. So, externally, he was living in luxury. He was not in the renounced order. He was a grahastha, he was a businessman, and he had all kinds of luxury surrounding him. He was sleeping on a velvet bed. He had a servant holding a pot for him to spit out, the remnants of betel leaves, like they do in India. And he was wearing, scented oil. It's considered to be luxury. He was wearing clothes which were very fine with jewelry. And when Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu first met him, he could not believe that this person could be elevated. He could not. Now, why would this happen? This happens because there is a focus on tatastha, isn't it? We say the Vaishnava is impoverished, he is supposed to accept only what others give him, so on and so forth. Now, this is something where there was judgment passed about external activity of this Vaishnava. He was quite extraordinary, but he was not he did not exhibit the qualities which were external. But the moment the very confidential verses of Srimad Bhagavatam were spoken out, Pundarik Vidyanidhi Prabhu went into ecstasy and he fell out of the bed on the ground, almost losing consciousness. And at that point in time, Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu recognized that he had judged him quite offensively. That is how he felt. And to remedy for that purpose, he determined that this is great offense cannot be remedied unless I surrender to him. So he accepted Pundarik Vidyanidhi Prabhu as a spiritual master. He took Diksha from him. And he took Diksha even though Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu was renounced and Pundarik Vidyanidhi Prabhu was Grahastha. And even though Pundarik Vidyanidhi Prabhu was the opposite of external renunciation, internally he was completely surrendered. He was a pure devotee. Externally, he was a businessman. But Gadadhar Pandit Prabhu, he realized his mistake. And he just wanted to completely surrender. He wanted to take Diksha from him. And he took Diksha. So what do we see from all of this? We see that great confusion is caused because of a focus on the external. Great confusion is caused because certain qualities of a Vaishnava differ based on Varna and Ashrama. The internal quality of being completely in the shelter of Krishna is valid. It's bona fide. It's always there. That should be the only focus for us to pass judgment. And there is no judgment. It is full acceptance. If someone has accepted Mahaprabhu, and we are truly, we have captured the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu in our hearts, we will have no difficulty accepting the other person. No difficulty whatsoever. We must discriminate, but more so in the mood of wanting to serve. Not so much wanting to act as if we are superior without paying attention to what they are all about. Okay? So I'm going to stop here. We covered a few points which were very critical in terms of Sadhu Ninda. And I'm going to stop here. I'm going to see if you have any questions that I could address. My request to you is that if you cannot access the Google event question Q&A, which is right there, which is quite easy to do, post your questions on Facebook chat. Not on Facebook, but then through Messenger, where you directly chat and put questions to me, because that would allow me to answer as well. I've kept that open as well, if you cannot access this. Okay, we'll stop right here because I have not received any questions. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thank you for coming in. The next time I would suggest that you post questions on Facebook as well. And this way, while the conversation or while the class is going on, I would also be able to capture your questions. But when I say Facebook again, I'm requesting you to post questions through Messenger. Thank you. Hare Krishna.